Hello and welcome back to another episode of Escaping Kerbin. Today we have a little bit of a mishmash. We didn't get... we figured out what the problem was with why we kept losing footage, and it was due to space limitations. And so we cleared off that, but we did lose a little bit of footage where we sent a probe to the Mun. And we'll talk about that pretty soon. We're just going to do a little quick contract for some money, and then we're going to take on the bulk of the mission. And as you can tell by the title, it's another mission to the Mun. So first off, let's just get ourselves a little bit more money. We don't really need it. We have over $1 million, but we might as well get this contract out of the way. So all we got to do is 2 little tests. One on the launch pad and 1 splashdown, which is going to be a perfect usage for our new launch pad that we unlocked a couple episodes back, since we're going to be able to just drive it straight into the water instead of having to launch off the launch pad and then drive the whole way. See, look how close that is. So first we just got to test the heat shield, do that on the launch pad. I'm not exactly sure why I decided to fast forward time a little bit, but for some reason I deemed it necessary. So we went and we tested the heat shield, got that contract nice and done. All I gotta do is throw ourselves to the drink, and there we go. We got the last. So that's just, I just wanted to include that to, show you that I'm still doing stuff, even though I tend to lose footage, but hopefully that, it's fixed now. I had over 700 gigabytes of data just from the editing software alone, just, autosaves and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was running on very little space. Anyways, you can see that we just changed out the engine right there, and that's because in the first Mun mission, the probe that we sent, the engine wasn't powerful enough. Its thrust to weight was not strong enough, and we ended up crashing into the side of the rocks. So we don't want to do that this time. Also, we found out that just a little bit extra oomph on takeoff will help. And we are putting parachutes on practically all of our stages that are going to be around Kerbin, because we want to try to make some money back after we had a completely failed mission. So the cost of the rocket is important to us. But here we are. We're lifting off. Pretty typical, pretty standard takeoff. I do all my takeoffs in a sense by hand. I don't use MacJeb, not yet, anyways. I just don't really understand how to go about doing it, and I've watched a couple tutorials, but I've still get a little bit lost sometimes. I think I just need to take a day and go into creative mode and just play around with it and see what I can do. So I might do that at some point, because a lot of people like MacJeb, and also with some of our missions, it'll help automate some of the process, especially if we're sending satellites to places. So. But here we are. The side boosters are about to flare out, and we're going to go ahead and decouple them. I was trying to get a good shot of it, but I ended up just missing it entirely. Yeah, so we're going to leave a good portion of this flight unedited. We have made trips to fly by the Mun, but we've never actually landed on it. So this is, I want to include all of this. This was one of the midway updated versions of the probe control room, mission control room mod, but this one I don't like either. It's interesting to have the different screens up, but I feel like on the right there's a lot of wasted space just putting the logo there. And I do like that the buttons are back, as opposed to in the previous version, which is actually the most recent version. But yeah, the most recent version of probe room control, I'm just not a big fan of the setup. I feel like you lose a lot. And like here, there's nothing on the desks for either, and the Capcom was pretty good at being a docking desk. Had a big old screen, had buttons specific for docking, and the crash specialist desk was very specific for landing. I don't understand why the author chose to remove those functionalities. Maybe they have bigger plans set, but as you can see here, we just recovered the funds for our side boosters, so that's good. But yeah, and I'm not, don't get me wrong, this is not a criticism on the mod author. I think, they do great work. I just prefer an earlier version, and I am probably going to revert the mod to that version moving forward. It's partly because I'm used to it, and just partly because I feel that it makes the most sense. But anyways, that's a little bit of a side topic that I got off at. Here we are, circularizing our burn, circularizing our orbit over the planet, using the last of the fuel in the big tank. Get our just kind of get our orbit taken care of quickly. I like using high thrust engines up here in the vacuum to just really put some fun things, and then rely on my more fuel efficient ones for interplanetary or intercelestial body, if you will. And I also have some small solid rocket boosters pointed backwards, so that way when we go ahead and separate the lower side, you'll see them fire off that way, and that's just to really confirm that it deorbits. There was a possibility that we could have gotten straight up into orbit on that stage, and if that was the case, then I didn't want to have to flip around and break that orbit and then stage it and then flip around and then use fuel from the Terrier engine to get back into orbit. So having a couple SRBs is good. But of course, since we did a manual takeoff and ascent, it's not as perfect as a computer takeoff. So we're going to go ahead and just adjust our inclination to the MUN, so that way we have a nice equatorial flat plane to work with. So just getting ourselves lined up anti-normal, I believe. And then just barely pushing out any kind of fuel, just ever so slightly. And of course we used the RemoteTech's flight computer for that. We're going to be using flight computer for a lot of these things, because it's a probe and we don't know if we're ever going to lose communications with it, connection, and so we want to have our stuff programmed in so that way if there is no control to it, it'll still do the things that it needs to do, and hopefully we'll be able to regain control and continue on with the mission. So here we are, just time warping into the escape maneuver. And just like always, we're just pushing it out. I probably could have fast forwarded this part, so sorry about that. The video is already finished and processed, so this is just we're just gonna hang out here while we raise our apoapsis. In the coming videos, I'm going to be doing a lot more editing, a lot more shortening of missions, just like this part. I may cut out completely and a lot of things, just because it gets a little tedious. But this is only episode 5, and this is the first time we landed on the MUN, and so I'm still feeling like showing a lot more is better and probably more interesting. If you're new to this series, then you haven't been inundated with these launch patterns, and so So yeah, so it might be fun to watch for those people. So I want to at least do a little bit more, a few missions where I just kind of go through the whole thing and show the process. So now we're just approaching, and gotta be careful not to zoom too fast. We do have an alarm clock set, so it should slow us down, but I still think if you're going max speed, the computer might miss it. So always gotta be careful. And here we are. We are in orbit of the Mun. So now it's pretty good, because if we lose communication, or if batteries fail, and we no longer have control of this probe, then it'll at least be a satellite dish, because it's got two, one pointed towards Kerbin, the other one's pointed towards the Mun, just to keep communication with those satellites. But we could always just change it to be active vessel, and then we'll have another comm set. But let's try not to do that. So here we are, we're just plotting in our landing burn. We're using trajectories to kind of figure out where to go, and as you saw, the goal is just before the canyons. I want to land in the Far East Crater, but still be close enough to the canyons that I can make a secondary hop to another biome. So that's what this was designed for. It was designed to take 2 biomes worth of experiments, and the goal is to take those and return them to Kerbin, because one of our contracts has that we're supposed to land a probe on the Mun, we're supposed to get an escape trajectory, and we're supposed to land or splash down back on Kerbin in order to complete the contract, and that is one of the main ones that we're going for right now. So I go ahead and I plot in a horizontal velocity cancellation burn right there. That's something that you can do. You can go to one part of your trajectory and add a maneuver, and use that to gauge when to kill your horizontal velocity. I had that one very low. I wouldn't recommend doing that maneuver that low. A little bit higher would be good, but basically you just put the maneuver and you pull retrograde until your craft is going to go straight down, and then you don't have to worry too much about the horizontal velocity at the time. Yep, so here we are. Our trajectory was going to be in the canyon, that's why I was aiming for it, but by making our burn, it brings back the landing spot, and we are going to aim for this crater right here. We kick off that stage. It used to have, in the first rocket, it had a probe command module on there, so we could land it safely, but we ran out of fuel, so it doesn't seem like that's going to be a possibility. So we just go ahead and get our landing gears out, and get ourselves ready to come down. And it's nice, we're in basically the center of the crater, so it should be a nice flat landing. I'm using MechJeb's landing window to calculate my suicide burn, and it's very scary. It's a very accurate suicide burn. If you hit it completely right, you will come down, and I mean, like, as you saw. Here I was a little bit perturbed that I didn't have the science for that. I believe that was from, the reasoning from that was my last attempt. When it crash landed, I was able to transmit some science, but I had forgotten that I had landed in the East Crater as well. So sadly, that science is not possible. So we have to just go ahead and move on to our second location. And we're just flipping around just ever so slightly, just kind of eyeballing things. We're gonna try to avoid landing on the walls of the crater and just flip ourselves entirely. So we just pick this nice little spot right there. I do some science to see if for some reason I could get any experiment from the in space low. Maybe I might have had something on this craft that I didn't before, but there was nothing. So I just reset all the experiments and get ready to go. So once again, I am relying on MechJeb right there. You can see in the lower left, the suicide burn countdown. And it's tough, especially if your computer has any kind of lag, but I try to hit that right on the mark at 0.0 seconds until burn. And as you can see here, I come down softly. I land and I'm stable for a second, but then I start to tip over. So I just set my experiments and I get the heck out of there. At this point, I was supposed to burn up and escape the Mun's sphere of influence, but I don't know that I actually have enough fuel. I probably did. I probably had enough fuel to get myself home, but it was starting to look like that I had wasted some of my Delta V somewhere along the lines, and I didn't have enough. So instead, I decided to just head for a different biome entirely, and just kind of get myself landed and figure out what to do next. It's nice as we land, we pass by a moon crater, and that's kind of fun. So once again, MechJeb. And oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! It's very, very tight suicide burn. Yeah, it's always a little bit harrowing trusting MechJeb, but there we go. We finally landed in a biome where we have experiments that we hadn't done. So we go ahead and transmit whatever we can. And then we check on our map real fast and see kind of what direction we go. And see, this is where I realized that I fully realized that we didn't have enough fuel to get home. So instead, I just burn out, and instead of circularizing, I just kill the throttle and just deal with what I have. Sadly, I killed the throttle a little bit too late. And so we're going a little bit farther than I probably would have wanted. So now I'm just taking all the experiments that had been stored, any of the ones that I could grab at least, and just transmitting them. It sucks. I'm transmitting some of the mystery goo, and so we're not getting full amount of science for that, but a little bit of science is better than nothing, because I need to unlock some more tech if I want to start doing bigger missions for this and getting more science. Like, I think that's kind of where we're at right now. That's the resource that we are in most need of. We need different parts. We need to get command modules. We need to get better solar equipment. These solar panels cannot retract, so basically their plan was to just burn up on re-entry. And that's not the best, because then you could cause kind of a chain reaction of heat and burn up other parts. So we need to make this work. We need to make this count. So here we go. And for the final time, relying on MechJeb's suicide burn counter. However, I did not have enough fuel, and this is as much as we could have done. So we go ahead and hit, and I am just shocked that we didn't just explode on impact. And so now I'm in control of this little probe, and we just gotta kind of ride it through. I have no propulsion ability. There's nothing I can do to change my velocity or any of that stuff. So here we are, getting ready for impact, and wouldn't you know it, we still have control. It's still got the antenna and batteries. So it's just living. This is the little probe that could, and so even though it was a failed attempt, we didn't complete the contract because we can't bring this probe back. But it was fun to see that to prove to ourselves that we could land on the Mun, and as long as we don't waste our mission by landing in the same biome that we already got the science for, or taking another biome that we weren't planned for. So it's good. It's a good proof of test. So anyways, that is going to be the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're enjoying the series. If you do, please consider giving me a like, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.